Alright, hi, this is Richard. We are going to get started with another intermediate course, and we're going to be talking about topology. Because we didn't talk about these things at all in the beginner courses, we need to go over them. Good modeling starts with good topology, and you need to be thinking in topology. So what is topology? Well, let's look at it with this square. It's basically how the polygons work together. And let's switch this to edge view. And you can see each side of this cube, well, it has four sides, so it's made out of quads, four-sided polygons, and they go all the way around it in these loops, all the way around it that way. It doesn't really break up. It's good topology. Now, Blender works best in quads. You don't want to have a lot of triangles, and you don't want to have a lot of 5, 6, 7-sided ingons, is what those are called when there's more than four sides. Good topology is going to be all quads. This is just a basic head that I made to start doing some sculpting to turn into all the different characters that I want to have. And let's take a look at this head. Here is the topology of the head. You can see, if you select these, how you have edge loops going all the way around, how the face goes around in loops in these different areas. Whoops, right there around the nose, and then around the lips. And having this type of topology, where you can select all these loops, is going to allow you easy ways to manipulate this, to change it, and then when you animate, it's going to allow you to animate better. See how when I move the mouth, it's a stiff upper lip, but when I move the mouth, it doesn't make the whole face all weird. It just opens and closes nicely. It's because these squares right here at the corner of the mouth can change along 4 different sides instead of just 3. Something you'll also notice is you see 5 sides coming together, 5 points right here. Those are called poles. This is a very low polygon face to start with that I've added Subdivision Surface to. And so I haven't applied it yet. This is just putting the mesh onto the modifier with this button right here. So you can see how I have these poles here and up here because it's where 5 corners come together. Those are harder to animate. So you want to put those where you're not going to be getting a lot of stress and strain from them from being animated. So you want to make sure that you don't have many around the mouth. There's one right here. And if you want to find those, well, let's take vertices, and you can select one, and then we can go to select, and we can do select similar, amount of adjacent faces. Now look at that. We have all of our poles selected, and you can see where they are. And there's a few of them, but once we apply this subdivision surface, those will go away. These pink lines, these are where I've added creases, so that you're going to see some more detail when I deform this at these places, around the nose and the nostril, and this little snot trough, I'm not sure what to call that part of the face, and then around the lips, and around the eyelids, and the eyebrows, and then the back of the head here. I still have some more work to do. I just recently started this one, so I still have to smooth out the back of the head a bit. But then you can see that crease here. It makes the lips more defined. It makes this part of the nose stick out. If you look at an actual human, you'll see this. If I took those creases off, it'd be all smooth all over, look kind of alien. It's just those little features that give it a bit more realism. And as we add textures to this, that'll help a lot as well. And then, because we have good topology here, I can save this, and when I start a new face, then I can start from this face, and I can just select these rings and these loops and use proportional editing to change the shape of this face however I want it. I can make the cheeks really big if I grab over here. You know, let's switch this to normal. And then we can puff out the cheeks a little bit. and give bigger cheekbones. Or, you know, it would be smart if we raise those cheekbones up a little bit. That's a little bit more realistic to have higher cheekbones, and we could have a wider jaw if we just took some of these and just move them out a little bit. That's probably something that you would want a bigger sphere for, because a jaw affects almost the whole face. You know, now we have a more realistic human, because heads are pretty square most of the time, and cheekbones are high and kind of pointy. That's where you get your face developed from. But, I mean, this is about topology and why you want good topology, so let's stick to that. Let's go ahead and put this back how it was. There we go. And it's because I have good topology that doing those proportional editing things, like this here to make the face, all the features a bit wider, but because I have good topology for this face, the proportional editing isn't going to pinch areas and make the shading weird and cause problems when I try to animate this. That's why you need to think in topology, and doing a face is a good way to do it. And since I've talked about a few things with this face, let me show you how I did this. I'm just going to open it up again, get rid of those changes I made, and here's the secret. You can see I have an image as a background with topology already on it. This is only the second face I've ever made. I'm not too very good at doing faces. Getting the topology right is pretty difficult, so I picked an image with a very simple topology, and I downloaded the image, and I cheated. Big time. Cheating. My pants are on fire, I guess? I don't know. I don't think it's lying, because it's what I needed to do to get the correct topology and start practicing on this. So I downloaded the face, and I drew the vertices on it. Let's go into edit mode, and I'll remind you how to do that. I have nothing selected, and then I can just hold Control and left click, and I'll put a vertice. Whoops, I do have something selected. Okay, I'll put a vertice here, 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 and draw all the way around this topology. And I apologize if it doesn't look like I'm dropping them right on those axes, but it's because of this screen sharing. For some reason, it does some weird things when you screen share. And then just move it. Let's turn the proportional off for this. So that is how I made this face. I cheated. I drew the topology over these images and then carefully connected it and then smoothed it out with proportional editing and worked towards my goal in that way. Now if you see that, I selected this vertice, and all of these are on a line together, so I held Control and then I selected the last one and it selected that whole line, if you're wondering how I did that. So then I selected it all and I hit F to fill in the faces. It was really that easy. Make this face for the first time so that I can start learning topology, and then every face I've done after this one has been a little bit better. And a little bit better and a little bit better. So that's what topology is. For every object you make, you need to think about how you're going to fit the squares into it, where you're going to have your quads, where you're going to place your poles, because sometimes you need to connect 5 together because you'll need more detail in one area, like around the eyes, than you have here across the forehead. So we have, and then also because the eyes are circles, we have to go from going this way on the X to this way down the Z, to circle back around to the X, going back this direction. You have to put those poles in there to make those transitions more even for the details that you want to highlight. Like the eyes, you'll see there's no poles in here, they're out here on the forehead, on the cheek, so that we can have that detail around the eyes, because they're going to be blinking and doing different things and deforming a little bit. And then those poles will move up with smiles on the cheeks, so they'll move down. And when we subdivide, it'll leave one pole in each of these places, but a lot of different quads will go in there. So let's just apply these in this form, and now you can see that. Now there's just those poles here, but it added a bunch of quads in everywhere else, which is going to make animation even easier. And now, instead of having a bunch of different, or like a grid, like Pinhead from the Hellraiser series, you don't have Pinhead with a bunch of lines going down. Kind of on the head you do, up here, not down the face. You have rings, like different areas. And that's really why you need to consider topology. Now let's go into something else, something simpler. Circles, you might have some n-gons. One or two on a flat face would probably be okay, especially for static meshes. Oh, whatever. This is one that I did just the other day for the live show. And you'll see this is all made out of quads as well. Except, actually these are even quads here. But they're not too very necessary. I could turn this into an n-gon and have it just be one big circle if I dissolve that, see? And it would look okay. It would be okay. And it would shade fine because it's flat and it is gradual. This curve here into that polygon is gradual. So there's not a lot of places that a problem could come up. Let's just render that real quick and see. It looks okay. So I can allow an n-gon right there. And down here I could allow one on the bottom as well. So let's go into edit mode. And let's select that and just hide it. So I could hit X and dissolve vertices and turn this into an n-gon, and it wouldn't cause any problems at all. Everything would still look fine. So you just have to be very careful where you have those n-gons and why you have those. And you don't want to have a lot, and you don't want to have them all over, especially on things that you're going to animate. And you don't want to have a bunch of triangles. Now, most places that you're going to export these to, it's probably going to consider these n-gons as triangles, connecting lines between these verts, but because you worked on them as n-gons, it's not going to create too big a problem with shading, whereas if you start deforming these quads, it might. But using things like Subdivision Surface, it's going to transform everything into quads again. So if you had a bunch of triangles here and then you just applied the modifier Subdivision Surface, it would transform it all back into quads. You would end up with a lot more polygons. But sometimes you want that nice smoothed out look. And that's really what we're talking about with topology. Try to avoid triangles. Let's see if I can find something that I did a long time ago that has bad topology. Yeah, this was like one of the first things that I actually made in Blender. I was just playing with the Subdivision Surface. You know what? So then it's not going to have, because I did the Subdivision Surface. Okay, I didn't apply it. Hey, we can improve this. I've never come back to this. Just add some edge loops in there, just smush it to the sides, and we can but even on this, pretty much everything is in quads. So here, like if we add this, because you think it would give a nicer rounded shape. To your loaf. So you do that, and looks okay, but then look at it right here. If you can see this, you've got light white here, here, here. It creates a kind of a plus shape here in dark gray, and then you've got this dark gray coming up here. So there's a few areas where the shading just goes stupid. And that's because right here, it's coming together as a triangle. It's not as bad on the subdivision surface, the subsurfed one, but let's turn that back down. Turn it off. Oop. There we go. You can really see it's slicing this in half with a bright line. You get a dark line here and dark because it's a lot harder for the computer to figure out how to smooth shade it. And if we make it flat, you can even see how this should transition evenly between these, and it doesn't. That's bad topology. Now let's back up. Okay. Well, it's not going to let us. So what we can do, I don't want to do it that way. Let's just reopen it. And then let's go ahead and take that off. And you can still see some of that because there's not very many polygons for it to spread this over. But then if we change this to flat, you'll see it's having a better time doing light shades between the places where it transforms and light hits it. So this was one of my absolute very first things that I ever did in Blender. It's the first one that I ever saved. So I'm showing you a skeleton in my closet. It's this loaf of bread. Just as an example of topology. And I mean, it's not really very bad for a first try at something. You see we've got topology going around. We've got these loops going around each way. So I mean, it's not broken up that bad. It's actually okay for topology. Hopefully you're getting a better sense of how topology works and how you need to be thinking about things. Okay, let's go here. You can see these curves here. It's actually curving down a little bit. Even here where there's a point where it comes together and it changes direction. This is still four sides, so it's still a quad. And we work in loops. So you don't want it to suddenly stop. You want to be able to select all the way around everything. That shows good topology when you can go all the way around. There's a few places here where it changes direction and doesn't quite know what I'm wanting to do. See this one here? Whoops, that's the triangle. Sometimes you can't avoid them, but you really want to try to whenever possible. And it's just because I needed these edge loops in here to do some specific gradation to it. And even on this circle, the only place that's not quads is right here where these come to a point in the middle. So everywhere along this, even around the handle, you can select these loops. That's going to help you with deforming and changing things just a little bit to get that extra bit of realism. Whereas if you have bad topology, you're going to have to rework everything and oftentimes deleting things and starting over to make them look right. And that can be a big deal. So if you just start, by thinking about topology, then when you hit a roadblock, it's going to be a lot easier for you to figure out the solution. And I'll say it again, you want to work in quads, you don't want to work in triangles or n-gons. And hopefully you get a good idea. If you have any other questions about topology, ask me in the comments. I'll be around, I'll answer your questions. Let's have a discussion about it. Of course, you can always come by Saturdays at 3 p.m. Central Time. I'm going to be doing Beginner Blender Live, where I model something simple, and you can ask any questions about anything you're having problems with. Even if it's an intermediate question, I'll still get to it. It's just a way for you to have a dialogue with somebody live that can help you further your education in Blender. So that's all we're going to be doing about topology. You have a good rest of the day.